GRE. So if you just type like GRE ETS official PDF, you'll be able to find this file. So this is available for everyone. So let's start. If you have any question, you can just type on the chat room, because I think a lot of people will be joining today. So actually, I'm gonna enable voice for everyone because there are only 7 people now. All right. So if you want, you can type your question on the chat room, or you can just talk. All right. I should be able to hear you. All right. So let's begin. So the first question that we see in the ETS official is this one's really easy. So you guys all know the quantitative comparison question, right? So if A is greater, then you choose A. If B is greater, then you choose B. If both quantities are the same, then you choose C. And if you are unable to figure out what the answer, which is greater, using the information provided, then you choose D. So that's very simple. So in this case, you see that X, so when you have 2 parallel lines, if you have 2 parallel lines and you have a straight line through, these two, so this one and this one are called alternate angles, right? So we have alternate angles. Alternate angles. So this angle is the same as this angle. And also we have something called corresponding angles. So, and this one here are corresponding angles. And they are the same, all right? And also we have, if you have something like this one here and this one here, these are opposite angles, right? So they're opposite angles. And they're all the same, true? So these two are the same, these two are the same, and these two are the same. And also there's another thing you cannot learn, so that is co-interior angles. So this one here and this one here, so these are known as co-interior angles. And co-interior angles add up to 180. So this angle plus this angle gives you 180. So in this case, we can see definitely, so it's just very basic question. This one here is equal to this one. So X is equal to Z right there, and Y is equal to W because they are alternate angles. So therefore, the Y is equal to W, so these two quantities are the same. So that's equal to that, and that's equal to that, so they must be the same. So that's the answer. Now I'm going to move on to the next question. Now this one here, it's also a very simple one, but we're still going to do it. We're going to move on to more advanced problem later. So this one is saying if you have a line on these decimal places, that means it's repeating. So 387 is repeating. 387, 387, 387. So in this case, what do you think? You guys can type the answer if you want. So do you guys think this one is greater, or this one is greater, or are they equal? Then you go for C. If you are unable to figure it out, then it's D. So let's have a look. So one person said A. What about other people? Yeah, so I think many people went through this already. So let's have a look. So 0. If you just write this down, the first one, 0. You just have to write it down. So 0.717, 717, 717, etc., etc. And this one here is 0.71, 71, 71, etc. But you can see clearly that that's matching with this one, that's matching with this one, this one, this one. But right here, the 7, this is 1, right? So definitely this is greater, so the answer is A. Okay, so that's pretty simple, basic, very basic. Just gonna type something for Waxing because he seems to have some sound issue. Let's have a look at this one. This is saying 4% of S is equal to 3% of T. And this is greater than this one right there. So, is S greater or T greater? So in this case, we can see that 0.04 of S is equal to 0.03, so that's 3% of T. So that's T right there. So which one is greater? So an easier way to think about this, without writing this out, larger percent of S is equal to smaller percent of t. That means t must be a larger number, right? So therefore B is the answer. Okay. So because s is a smaller number, larger percent of that can equal to smaller percent of t. All right. So that's one way of thinking about it. Another way is just write this one out, and you get 0.04s is equal to 0.03 of t. You can divide by 0.04, then s is equal to 0.03 divided by 0.04 t. And this is equal to, you know, when you have all these placeholders are the same, you can just drop them off. Then you get 3/4 of t. So that means s is 3/4 of t. If you choose, let's say t is equal to 100. Okay? Then 100 times by 3/4 is equal to 75, isn't it? So then you get s is equal to 75. Definitely can see that this is greater than this one, right? So that's why the answer is B. But the reason why they said, you can see that here, s is greater and t is greater than 0. So this is very important. If this information is not true, so if one of them was negative, then the answer could be something else, you know. Of course, if they have to be equal to each other, then both of them has to be positive or both of them has to be negative. So if s is less than 0 and t is less than 0, and if this is the case, so I want you to maybe think about this, and if this statement is still true, 4% of s is equal to 3% of t, and this was the condition, I want you to think about how the answer would change. Would the answer still remain the same, B, or would the answer change to A? I want you to think about that and write in the comment. Write a comment in the comment section. I'm gonna load it on our group chat. I'm a group. The GRE and GMAT forum, our group. So I'm gonna post the video there, and you guys can write down the answers. For that one. Now let's move on to this one here. Okay, so I want you to have a look. All right, Waxim, so t is greater simply because smaller percent of t is equal to larger percent of s. That means t has to be a greater number. How can smaller percent of something be equal to larger percent of something? The only way that's possible is if t is greater, you know? Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next one. So 3 circles with their centers on line segment PQ are tangent at point PRQ. So like this, okay. And he says the circumference of the largest circle, that's the circumference of the largest circle here, and the sum of the circumferences of the 2 smaller circles. So circumference of that plus circumference of that. So in this case, would this be greater or would this be greater? Let's have a look. So we know that the circumference formula is given by 2 pi r, and we can see that this whole thing, let's suppose that I think the center of the circle is sort of like here. So this distance here is, we're going to call it r. And you can figure out the circumference. Let me just call this one. Let's just call the radius of this one as r1, and let's call this one r2. Then you can see that the whole diameter, this is also r1, this is r2. So the circumference of this one right here is 2 pi r1. 2 pi r1. Circumference of this one is, we're going to add that together because this is the sum of the 2 circumferences. So that's 2 pi r2, all right? So that's the sum. That's what this one is. This is 2 pi r1. This is 2 pi r2. Now we're going to figure out the circumference of this big circle here, right here. Okay, so we can see that the radius, so whatever that, this diameter here is r1, r1, r2, r2. So this is 2r1, 2r2, right? So this is the diameter, so we divide this by 2, and what we get is r1 plus r2. So this is the radius of the big circle. So I think the center is around here, so that's the value from there to there. So that's r, there to there is also r, and that's given by r1 plus r2. I think that makes sense. So the circumference of this big circle is given by 2 pi r1 plus r2. So you can see that if you expand this one out, then you get 2 pi r1, this one times by this one, and this one times by this one. This is 2 pi r2. So that's the value for this one, and that's the value for this one. So the answer is actually, they're the same. But there is another interesting way to think about this. So this took a long time, right? So I'm going to show you an easier way to figuring this one out, okay? So let's take a look. I'm going to raise that off. So this question doesn't actually tell you how big these smaller circles are, okay? So we can actually imagine, all right, there's the big circle, and here's the diameter. I'm going to imagine that this third circle here is infinitesimally small, okay? So that's very, very small. And then the second largest circle is around like this. So we can draw it like that because this question doesn't give us any condition about the two smaller circles. So imagine this smaller circle is becoming infinitesimally small. Then this second largest circle will pretty much equal to, so this circle would pretty much equal to the larger circle. So these two will pretty much be equal to each other. So what is the sum of the circumference of this one and this circle, which is non-existent? How does that compare with the circumference of the red circle right here? They would be identical. You see that? So that's another way of thinking about it. Okay? So you don't actually need to do all the calculation all the time. Let's move on to the next one right here. It's number 5. We're just going through the basics first, and then once we go through all the official questions, then we'll move on to more difficult problems in like other problems that I made by myself. All right, let's go through this one. So you see the negative r is greater than 0. So that means, and which one is greater, t or 0? See, so it's a negative r is greater than 0. So therefore r must be a negative number. You see, because the negative of negative is positive. It's greater than 0. So r must be negative. Otherwise, it wouldn't be. If r was a positive number, then you would have a negative of positive number. Then that would be negative, which would be greater than 0. So definitely r must be a negative number. Okay. Now, since r is a negative number, so this is r times by t is less than 0. So this is negative. But if t is also negative, then that would make it positive instead of less than 0. So this has to be a positive number because negative times by positive is still negative. So t must be a positive number, okay? And this is comparing t versus 0. But t is a positive number, 0 is 0, so t is a greater number. So A is correct. And this one's A. Now let's compare this one. This is a very important problem. Very, very important. So this is x is greater than y. That's the condition. So is the absolute value of x plus y greater or an absolute value of x minus y greater? So a lot of people would think that the answer is A, but let's actually have a look. So what is absolute value, by the way? So many people that wouldn't know, don't know what the absolute value is. So I'm going to go through that now. So absolute value always makes things positive, okay? So if you have absolute value of 2, then you will just get 2. If you have absolute value of -2, then you get 2 as well. Okay, so whatever goes in there just comes out as positive, okay? So that's what these things are. So that's absolute value. Now, however, I want you to consider this case. So if x is equal to, for example, 10 and y is equal to 8, then what would be like 10 plus 8? That would be 18. So this value would be 18, absolute value of 18, so that comes out as 18. And if this is a 10 minus 8, then this would be 2. So that's why the choice A is very appealing. All right, but that's not the answer though, okay? Now we have to consider all these cases where, so x is greater than y, so let's have a look. So you can see, so case number 1 is when both of them are positive. So x is greater than y, but both of them are positive. Second case is where x is positive, but y is negative. So that's 0. Now, number 3 is when x is 0, you have, your x is negative, not 0, sorry. And both of them are negative. So this is still greater than that. So you have this, you have 3 cases right here. All right. So you can see that when they are, let's say I'm going to 10, 8 here. So you can see that 10 plus 8, that's greater than 10 minus 8. So this was 2, and this is like 18. So in that case, if this is the case, then this will be the answer. So if they said greater than 0, then that would be the answer, but it doesn't say that, right? So it could be this case as well. So this is like 10, and this is like, I would say, let's say -8. Okay? Then what would be 10 plus -8? That would be 2. And what's the absolute value of 2? That's just 2. But what is a 10 minus -8? That would be 18. What's the absolute value of 18? That's 18, you know? So if this is the case, then B is the answer. This is greater, you see? Another thing we have to talk about is this one. So when x is equal to, let's say, now in this case, let's say x is equal to -8 and y is equal to -10. So I'm going to choose this one as -10 and -8 because -10 is definitely less than -8. So let's have a look at this one. So if you have -8 plus -10, an absolute value of that's equal to -18, right? -18, and this will come out as 18, right? So this one here, however, is -8 minus -10. So that would equal to +2. True? So in this case, this is greater than this one. So if I could just summarize this. So here's the summary. If x and y are of the same sign, both positive or both negative, x plus y, when you add them up, I would say the size of x plus y, what should I say? I would say reinforce each other. They help each other, okay? It means they get greater, gets greater. And x minus y, like if you subtract them, if they have the same sign, then the size of it diminishes. So it decreases. So for example, if this is a 10 and 8, if you add them up, the size of it gets bigger, you see? They're both the same sign. If you have a -10, -8, and if you add them up, it's a -18. So the size of it actually gets bigger. Of course, -18 is a smaller number because it's negative, but I'm talking about the size of it. Okay, size of x plus y gets greater. But if you subtract them, what's 10 minus 8? The size of it diminishes, gets smaller. And if you have negative 10 minus negative 8, that also, the size of it gets smaller. It's negative 2. So the size of negative 2 is just 2, right? Now, on the other hand, if x and y are of the opposite sign, if they're of the opposite sign, then size of x plus y diminishes, gets smaller, and x minus y, the subtraction of them, it could be y minus x as well. So it could be y minus x, it could be y minus x. In this case, if you subtract them, it increases. Okay. Now let's move on to this one right here. So in the xy plane, the points A0 and 0B are on the line whose equation is this one. So let's actually go and have a look. So y equals to mx plus b. So this is the basic linear equation form, isn't it? So m is the gradient, that is the gradient, and b is the y-intercept. So if you have y equals to half x plus 10, which is the case right here, half x plus 10, then all you have to do is just start from 10 right here. That's the y-intercept, that's 10 right there. And if the gradient is positive, just draw a line that's rising. And if the gradient is negative, then just have to draw a line that's going downward. But in this case, it's a positive gradient, so just have to draw a line that's going in the positive direction, like this. I mean, it's rising, like this. Now, it's got x-intercept of this one and y-intercept of this one. So A0 is somewhere over here. This is whatever this is. This is A0, isn't it? Because if y is 0, that means it's something somewhere along the x-axis. And this is A. And whatever this is 10 right there, but this is actually the exact coordinates of this one is 0, 10. And this is actually comparison between, it's actually a bit cut. So this is A versus B. Is A greater or B greater? So what do you think is greater? This one greater or this one greater? You don't actually have to work this one out to figure out the answer. Whatever this is negative. This is on the negative side, right? So therefore, this is greater. So the answer is B for this one. That's greater. Okay, but we can work it out still. What's this one? What's A? So we can just let y equal to 0. So 0 equals to half x plus 10. And put the minus 10 on the other side. You get minus 10 equals to 0.5x. So you can just divide x, negative 10 by 0.5, then you get negative 20. So this value right here is actually negative 20. But of course, the size of A is greater than B, but the actual value, A is actually less than B. So negative 20 is less than 10. But if you take the absolute value of A, that's definitely greater than absolute value of B. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next question. So the answer was actually B for this one. All right. Let's have a look at this one here. This is also a pretty easy one. So it says company Y, the ratio of numbers of female employees to the number of male employees is 3:2. So there are 150 female employees at the company. How many male employees are there at the company? So the ratio of female to male is equal to 3:2. So you just write it like that. And it says female is 150. So 150 to male is 3:2. So when you have something to something equals something to something, so all you have to do is this times by this is equal to this times by this. So this is very good technique for ratio. So look at this. If you have 4:2 is the same ratio as 2:1, isn't it? So 4 times 1 is 4, and 2 times 2 is 4 as well. So this one times by this one is always equal to this one times by this one. So in this case, you have 150 times by 2 is 300, and 3 times by m is 3m. So m is equal to 100. So just have to write 100, okay? 100 for GRE. Now let's move on to the next problem. So it says a minus b over a plus b equals to 2 and b equals to 1. What is the value of a? So in this case, this is a multiple choice question now. So I'll just sub in b equals to 1. So a minus 1 and a plus 1 equals to 2, right? So you can actually work it out yourself through algebra, but we can also just try plugging those numbers. And let's suppose we plug in a. So it's 1 minus 1. So you get 0 over 2. So it's 1 plus 1. So that's not 2. 0 divided by 2 is still 0. So that's what this one tells you. We're going to try the last one. Usually they tend to put, if it's a trial and error problem, if you can work it out by trial and error, usually they put the correct answer in the last choice. So I'm going to use that one and see what I get. So this is a negative 3 minus 1 over negative 3 plus 1. So this is equal to negative 4 over minus 2. So negative 4 divided by negative 2 is 2. So which is the answer? So this guy is the answer. Okay, you don't have to try all these stuff. But let's just try them. Because if you plug in 0, then you get minus 1 over 0 plus 1. So you get 1. So that's equal to minus 1. That's what the answer is. If you plug in 0. Plug in minus 1, then you get minus 1 over minus 1 plus 0, which is 0. So anything divided by 0 is undefined. So remember, you can never divide by 0. Okay? So like 2 divided by 0 is not 0. Okay? So 2 divided by 0 is rather infinity, either positive infinity or negative infinity. So 0 divided by 2, however, is 0. So something divided by some constant denominator is 0. I mean, 0 divided by constant denominator is 0. Minus 2, then minus 2 minus 1 over minus 2 plus 1. So that's minus 3 over minus 1, which is 3. So this would give us 3. Okay. So this is through trial and error method, but you can, of course, try all that through, figure out what A is through direct algebraic method. So I'm going to move this one. I'm going to multiply. If you have A over B equals C, you know that A is equal to BC. You can just multiply this by B here, multiply this side by B here, and B cancels out. So you get A equals to BC. So you get A minus 1 equals to 2 times by A plus 1. Of course, if you're multiplying 2 by this one, you have to protect this one with a bracket like this, because this whole thing is multiplied by 2. If you don't know about this, then just let me know in the comment section, okay? Now, if you expand this one out, 2A plus 2, and this is A minus 1. A is equal to 2A, and if you plus 1 on the other side, then you get plus 3. And this is equal to, if you move this one to this side, then you get A minus 2A equals to 3. So you get minus A equals to 3. So therefore, A is equal to minus 3. All right? If what I'm doing here is, if you feel like this is too fast, or like if you're unsure about what's going on here, then you have to revise algebra. I can definitely help you with that. Let me know if you're struggling with the basic algebra. Like number 12. The floor space in a certain market is rented for $15 for 30 square feet for 1 day. So for those of you who are not in the USA or not living in the USA, you can convert. It's convenient to think whenever you have a square feet, convert that into square meter. Just think of it as square meter, because the wording here sometimes is really confusing. Because when you are having these unfamiliar units, that messes up your thinking process. So you can square feet, I'm going to just put that as meter square, and feet is just going to convert into meter, right? So that's the rate. In the market, Alice rented a rectangular floor space that measured 8 feet by 15 feet. So 8 by 15. So total area there is 8 by 15, which is equal to 120 meters square. Okay. Betty rented rectangular floor space that measured 15 feet by 20 feet. So 15 feet by 20 feet. So that's equal to 300 meters square. So this is the space that Betty rented, and this is the space that Alice rented. So how much more space did Betty rent? So the answer is 180 meters square, right? So that's the amount of space that's rented by Betty. This is how much Betty rented more than Alice. Now the charge is, so the question is, if each woman rented her floor space for 1 day, how much more did Betty pay than Alice? So how much did she pay more than her? So it costs $15 every 30 meters square. Every square feet, you know. Of course, they're not the same thing, you know, but it's better to translate these languages into standard units. Because, you know, rest of you guys, you know, most of you guys are not in the USA. All right, so all we have to do is just figure out how many 30s fit into 180. Well, the answer is 6, right? So 6 30s fit in. That means there are 6. It costs $15. So 6 times by 15 is this is equal to $90. So she must have paid $90 more. So that's very easy as well. If you have any questions, just let me know anytime. All right. Number 13. Business owner obtained a $6,000 loan at a simple annual interest rate of R% in order to purchase a computer. Well, nobody does simple interest rate these days, of course. Everyone does what's called compound interest rate. So we're going to get to that in a minute. Compound. So simple interest is this. If you have, so I think the interest, this is the formula for simple, PRN. PRN. So P is the principal, R is the rate. Of course, R is between 0 and 1. And N is the number of years. So we just have to work out so interest. So have a look at this. So after 1 year, the owner made a single payment of $6,840 to repay the loan. Of course, this one is divided into $840 and $6,000, right? So this is the principal. And this is the interest. So interest is $840. Principal is $6,000. And the number of terms is just 1 year. And the R is just, you know, that's what we're trying to figure out. What is R? So this one, R is equal to this is equal to 840 divided by 6,000. So all we are doing is what percent of 6,000 is $840, you see? That's what we're trying to figure out. So we can just use the GRE calculator here. This is the GRE calculator. So I just have to do 840 divided by, the keyboard doesn't work, so I have to use mouse. 840 divided by 6,000. So 840 is 14%. So this is 0.14, which means so this R, by the way, is actually different from this one. This is with the percent there, right? So this has to be 14%. It's actually the same thing. So the answer is 14%. So 0.14 is the same as 14%. Okay. Now let's move on to this one here. So 2 plus, so L, the list L is 2xy, list M is 1, 2, 3, xy. The average of the three numbers, this one, in the list L is 10 on 3. What is the average of the 5 numbers in the in list M? So what is the average of these guys here? So we know that the average of these 3 is 2 plus x plus y, isn't it? So, and then divided by, because there are 3 numbers, you got to divide by 3. And they say the answer is the average of these 3 numbers, which is this one, that's equal to 10 over 3. So you can see that you can multiply both sides by 3. Obviously, this part would equal to, if this over 3 equals to that over 3, this must be that. So 2 plus x plus y equals to 10. All right, now I'm just going to leave it like that. Now, what's the average of these 5 numbers? So that's a 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus x plus y divided by 5, isn't it? Yeah, so that's the average of these 5 numbers. But we know what 2xy is, right? That's 10. So this is 1 plus 3 is 4. And this and this and this is equal to 10. So this is equal to 14 on 5. So you can just write 14. And there's already a slash there. So this is a 14. And you just have to type 5 there. Like this. It doesn't matter where the 5. You can put this 5 here and put 5 there. It doesn't matter. These are just nothing. Okay, 5 can go there, 5 can go there. Doesn't matter. You can even do like 1 and 4 like that. 1, 4. Okay, so it doesn't matter. Now number 5. This is a very tricky one, by the way. Very, very tricky. So which of the following inequalities have at least one positive solution
and at least one negative solution?
Indicate all such equalities. So what they're saying is, in those choices, can x be, is there value of x, which is one of them is positive and one value is negative? So for example, let's look at the first one. We've got 5 over 3x. So this is a little more than 1, right? So this is, let's say, like 1.2. I'm going to say this is like 1 point, let's say, how much? 1.8. 1.8. Just going to approximate it like that, and then it's like that. So 1.8 times by x is less than the x itself. All right. So hey, Waxim, if you are, I'm just gonna do it until I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna have to do 1 hour, so 15 more minutes. So if it's all breaking, then you can just log off and just get the recording. Okay. I'll probably start using Zoom next time. All right. Thank you for coming. Yeah, I really can't help. The voice issue and video breaking issue, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, all right. So this one is asking, can x be a positive number and as well as negative number? Not simultaneously, but separately, So is there any positive number that can satisfy this one? For example, if I have 10 here, if x is equal to 10, this is 10 times by 1.8, which is 18. So 18 is actually greater than 10, you see? So it seems to be not working. So in fact, there is no positive answer for this one. If it is a positive number times by 1.8 just makes it greater than the original number, you see? So that's a common sense, So I don't think there is a positive answer for this one. So for positive answer, no. Okay. Is there a negative answer? Of course there is. So if this is a negative 10, what's negative 10 times by 1.8? Then it becomes negative 18. Negative 18 is definitely less than negative 10, you see? So I think it works for any negative number. You can see that, right? So if you choose any negative number, it's going to make it even more negative by multiplying by a factor of 1.8, you see? So I think there are plenty of negative answers. So this one is not an answer. You shouldn't choose it. Choose this one, okay? It's only talking, you have to choose one that has at least one negative answer and at least one positive solution, okay? So let's move on to this one first, okay? C. Yeah, I'll be recording. I'm recording it now, so I'll be uploading it to my group page. So don't worry too much, okay? You can get the recording straight away. I'll upload like tomorrow morning. Okay? Yeah. So let's have a look at C here. So you can see that x minus 6 is less than x minus 7, and sort of think about it. If I move this one, if I plus 1 on both sides, then I get x minus 6 plus 7. And this is minus 7 plus 7. So I'm plussing 7 on both sides. Then I get x plus 1 here. And I get x. All right. So x plus 1 is less than x. Is that possible at all? What I'm going to do is I'm going to do something funny. So I'm going to take minus x both sides. So minus x cancels, so you get 0. And this is actually 1. So you get 1. So what this is saying is actually the same thing as 1 is less than 0, but that doesn't make any sense, right? So what this is stating is something that's impossible. So let's just look at just up to maybe here. Just up to here maybe. Yeah, right there. So I plus 7 both sides, so I got this one. So if you think about, choose any number on a number line. So this is number line, so this is like 0, 1, 2, 3, etc., etc. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. So if I choose any number, I'm going to call that x. Where is your x plus 1? So that's 1 more than x. So that's right over here. This is your x plus 1. So whatever you choose on the number line, x plus 1 is 1 more than the x that you chose. So it doesn't matter whether this is positive number or negative number, this is always impossible. So this one, positive number solution, there is no positive number solution. For this one, there is no negative number solution either. So that's impossible. So you shouldn't choose these two guys, okay?
So if you have correctly eliminated the two
wrong answers, and it says indicate all such inequalities, that works. Probably choosing none of them is not a choice, so probably you should go for that one. Okay, so that's one of the strategies you can think of. But this one, there's a lot of things to learn from this guy. Okay, so if x is between -1 and 1, so it's like decimals, okay, 0.5 or negative 0.9 and anything between -1 and 1. So examples are like 0.9, 0.99, 0.52, etc. Negative 0.21, see? Up to like negative 0.99, etc. So if you take these numbers and then you square it, okay, or you cube it, and look at the size of them. I'm going to put an absolute value sign. That means you're looking at the size of these guys. Okay. So the size of the x squared. So usually people tend to think, x squared, x to the power of 3. Usually people think that that's greater than this one. But that's the case, if x is outside of this one. If x is, for example, like 2. What's a 2 squared? That's 4. What's 2 to the power of 3? That's 8. So these are getting greater, as you do x squared, x to the power of 3. But that's not the case. This is very, very important for both GRE and GAMSAT. So you see, so you have to know these number properties. So if x is between -1 and 1, this one, for example, if you choose 0.1, what's going to be x squared? That's going to be even smaller, 0.01. What's x to the power of 3? That's going to be 0.001. It's getting smaller and smaller, you see? But if I choose my x to be negative 0.1, if you square it, it's going to be still positive, so 0.01, but this one's still negative. The negative survives for power of 3. For power of 4, negative disappears, but the negative shows up again if you do power of 5, so on and so forth. Okay, but if I'm just talking about the magnitude of it, okay? So if I just take the size of this, you can see. So if x is between these two, then the size of x squared, x3, they're actually less than the original value here. So can x to the power of 3 be less than x? Well, the answer is yes. Obviously, for positive answer, we found one, right? This one right here. So we started with this one. But then if you cube that, you get this one. See? So for positive answer, we can definitely find an easy answer. What about negative number, though? What about negative? If I choose negative 0.1, though, so that's on a number line, this is 0. If I choose my x as negative 0.1, my x to the power of 3 would actually be negative 0.001. So we're not talking about absolute value signs here, right? We're not doing that. So if I choose that, it's actually, of course, the size is decreasing from 0.1 to 0.001, but that actually is a greater number than this one because of the sign. That's more negative than this one. So in this case, if I chose my negative number as to find whether there is a negative solution, if I choose negative 0.1, x to the power of 3 is actually greater. This is actually a greater number than that one. So this is actually greater than this one. So it's not satisfying this one. But obviously, if you go for something outside of this one, maybe go for negative 2. Go for negative 2. So if your x is negative 2, then you can see that if you do x to the power of 3, it's going to be still negative, right? So negative, and it's negative 8. Right? Negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 is negative 8. So, and that's less than that, right? So on a number line, let me just erase this. So you can see that we just found one answer for negative, so that's this one. We found one answer for this one, which was like this. So on a number line, this is 0, 1, negative 1, 1, negative 1, 0. So the values that satisfy this one, the values that satisfy this condition are here and here. Okay, so that's the answer. So this is the only one. Let's move on to next question here. We got like 5 minutes. So I'm going to run more free tuition so you guys can learn many things. So I think a lot of people just don't have even the basics to even begin questions. So I'm going to lay down all the basic concepts, basic lessons through these official papers. And then if you guys need more tuition, just let me know. I get paid to teach, so yeah, not all tuitions are free. All right, next one. This one here is, just have to know that 5 to the power of, this is 5x times by, this is 25 is 5 squared. 5 times 5 is 25. This is equal to 5 to the power of n. So you should know that if you have a to the power of x times by a to the power of y, if the base are the same, this is one of the exponent rule, isn't it? So the answer is, this one is equal to 5x plus 2 equals to n. So what is the value of n? The answer is 5x plus 2. So that's a pretty simple one. So the exponent rules out if you have ax divided by ay, that's ax minus y. If you have ax to the power of y, that's a to the power of xy. And if you have like, what's another one? So if you have a to the power of x over y, so this is something that's quite special. You have the y root of a to the power of x. So if you have, for example, a to the power of, let's say, for example, if you have like 4 to the power of 3 on 2, you can actually, so this is also equal to y root of a and then outside to the power of x. So this is actually better. So have a look. So this is 4 to the power of 1.5. So this is the same as 2 root of 4. So that's the denominator. And then to the power of 3, isn't it? So that's equal to, this is square root. This is the same. If you have 2 root, that means you may have like a cubic root. You may have like a 4th root. But for square root, it's just root. Okay? So if you have a square root of 4, that's 2. And this is to the power of 3, isn't it? So you get 8 for that. So these are some of this is revision on exponent rules. So you need them to actually really do well in GRE. This one here, 180 judges appointed by a certain president. 30% were women and 25% were minority groups. If 1/9 of the women appointed were from minority groups, how many of the judges appointed were neither women nor from minority groups? So there are 2 categories here, women and minority groups. And you shouldn't assume that these 2 are disjoint. So a person can be both women and also in the minority group. So let's just draw a diagram. This is best done through a Venn diagram. So just draw a Venn diagram. This is for the women and this is for the minority group. So M stands for minority group, not male. So I'm going to take out the calculator again so you can see here. So I'm just going to do, all right, 30% of 180. That's equal to 30. So hold on, 180 times by 0.30, right? So that's a 54. So women is 54, but don't write it down here yet. So women is 54. And minority group is 25% were minority group, right? So if I go for 180 times by 0.25, then I get 45. So in GMAT, you're not allowed a calculator, but in GRE, you can. And we're doing GRE now. Now, it says 1/9 of the women. So this is the women, right? Appointed. So 1/9 of that were from minority group. It means 1/9 of the women are both women and in the minority group, right? So that's if you just take the 54 times that by 1 and then divide by 9. That's how you do fractions in GRE calculator. Okay, so you get 6. So that means 6 goes in the middle. Then if you do 54 minus 6, then you get 48. So 48 is only women only and not minority group. And 6 are both women and minority group. And minority group is 45, so this is 39. So what they're wondering about is, what they're asking is, what's this number right here? So this total is 180, true? So if you do a 180 minus this one minus this one minus this one, then you get the answer. So let's have a look. So you get 180. So 180 minus 48 minus 6 minus 39 gives you 87. So 87 is the answer.